Okay, welcome, welcome. We are live. It is Thursday. I had to double check, Jean. I didn't know what day it was. So it is Thursday. And my name is Doreen Moore, and this is College Prep Roadmap Live. We want to welcome everyone here today. We are doing these sessions, these episodes every week. We are hoping to provide information, up-to-date information, and some resources to our students, their parents during this pandemic. So it's important that we reach out. We are naturally working with families every day, and this was a natural thing to do, was just to provide this insight. So every week I have the honor and privilege to have a guest. And so today's topic is testing, which is a very hot topic. Testing, I mean, geez, the last 3 weeks, we've had major changes in terms of the college admissions requirements for our current seniors and our current junior class, and in some cases, our current sophomore high school students. So the testing component has always been a big deal. And Jean, I know you know that, and I'm going to introduce you in just a second. But the GPA and your testing component requirement has always been the two big factors in determining college admissions. So with this pandemic, with test dates being canceled, students are not able to test as they were planning on. They had scheduled, registered, and then the exams got canceled. It's really putting a lot of fear and uncertainty with families in terms of planning for the future and moving forward. So today's segment is all about testing. We're going to talk about test optional schools. A lot of schools are going test optional meaning not test blind. You can still submit your test score. And if you do send it, they will look at it. Admissions will look at it. And then those schools that are just not requiring it at all. So it's important that you understand what that means and what you should be doing. What are the next steps for your student? So that brings me to my guest, and she is in the testing world, Jean Burk. She's the CEO of College Prep Genius. She's from Dallas, Fort Worth, and I have been following her Facebook page. And the cool thing about her story, which Jean will have the mic in just a moment, or I should say the Zoom, or the computer screen, is she started her business as a parent. So right now we have viewers that are parents. What do you do? What are the next steps? How can you support your student? And she did this organically years ago with her own children. So let's just get started. We're going to jump in. I will be asking you questions, Jean. I have several questions from parents that I'm working with. So while you're, presenting, I may interject and ask you a question if it's something that I want to, ask at that moment. But thank you so much for being here with us, and you've got the mic.
All right, thank you, Doreen. Well, hello everyone. Hopefully everyone's staying safe and well today. I'm so excited about doing this presentation because it's definitely up my alley, but also I love helping people. And that's the thing I think that has kept me going, because my kids are long gone. They're adults now, they have careers. And so I still continue to speak and teach and share information, not only across the United States, but in several countries. But to kind of give you a background of where I'm coming from. So my kids were homeschooled back, 25 plus years ago. And we didn't have any money for college. We were just one income, and there's just no money. And I was at my friend's house one day, and she mentioned to me that there was free college available, scholarships available based on a test score. And I didn't know that. I'd never heard that before, but it definitely got me to thinking a lot about it, because I didn't know any other way to get any money. And so my son Josh at the time was in 9th grade. And so we started saying, okay, well, what do we do to make this happen? Because we didn't have any money for a test prep company. Many of them are hundreds, thousands of dollars, and whether they may or may not work, it didn't matter. We didn't have any money. So we started going through different tests. We bought some books at the store, and we went through practice questions, and there was a couple people in our town offered a couple prep classes, and we took those. And every time we would go through something or do something, we would learn a little bit, not a lot, but we would learn a few little things. Sometimes I remember one time going through a book and only one thing out of the whole book worked. Nothing else did. So we started doing lots of practice questions, and then basically, a long story short, my son Josh became a National Merit Scholar, and we ended up throwing away 7 trash bags of college offers. And so what happened was every day my mailbox was like this, full of letters and information, and just every day for about a year, it was, hey, Josh, come to my school and I'll give you a free ride, or I'll give you everything paid for, room and board, or grad school, or study abroad stipends, or something. Or they would send another letter saying, hey, if you'll come, we'll give you this on top of that. And so this went on for about a year. So crazy thing was, our decision went from how to pay for college to where in the world should he go, because we had so many offers. And then after my daughter got scholarships, we got these calls of people going, okay, how'd y'all get free college? And that's when about 15 years ago, I decided to take all the information and put it together in something nice and neat, not very helter-skelter like we were doing. And then I wrote a book called College Prep Genius. And then I started teaching a class out of my home. It was just 3 kids, 3 homeschool kids I knew, that I said, okay, let me show you some things I learned. And that grew from where my living room and my kitchen was full of kids. And then some of them, it was crazy. Some of those kids started telling their schools, their kids who were not homeschooled, but public school and private school. And then their school started calling me saying, hey, will you come in my school and teach this? And so then I started going to a lot of different schools. And then I had people from other cities who would say, hey, would you come to my city? If I got to get together a bunch of kids, would you come here? And I thought, well, okay, sure. And then I started going to other states. Then I started going to other countries. And so I've been really blessed to teach all of the United States, as well as have teachers who do it as well. But also I've taught in mainland China and Hong Kong, India, Thailand, Puerto Rico.
Wow.
And I have several invitations to go to a bunch of other countries too. Once this is all over, hopefully that'll be soon. But and so what happened is the kids came and started learning that these tests, SATs and ACTs, are not about your IQ. They're not about how smart you are. As a matter of fact, most of the schools that we're in, the top 10% or even the valedictorians are in our classroom because they bomb these tests. And they're smart kids. They're honor students and AP students, but yet it takes a different skill set to beat this test. So if a student approaches a test like an SAT or ACT, they're not going to get the best possible score because they're going to do everything they do in a school test, which is not how you beat this test. And so, you know, we've been blessed to have kids raise their SATs as much as 700 points, ACTs as high as 9 points. Lots of National Merit Scholars, lots of kids have gone to Ivy Leagues for free. So, you know, as a homeschooling mom, you know, I am used to being home. I'm used to doing things at home. But I know there's a lot of parents out there that kind of have been forced in a situation to do some sort of home education where they're teaching the kids, or they're having to oversee that their child is doing something online with their teacher. And so, you know, I just want to encourage you, where no matter what situation that you're in, that, you know, that you can do this. Your kids can beat this test. And I look at this time as a great opportunity for your kids to gain an edge, because probably now that they're home, they have a lot of extra time. Maybe what took them 8 hours at school to do, maybe they're getting it done in 2 or 3 hours at home, or they don't have any outside classes or sports to go to. So here's a time that you could actually spend and learn how to beat this test. And then when it's all said and done down the road, when they open up back the testings and all, scholarship money. And it would be great. It would be nice to think that all these millions of kids that are home are all putting time in and working in all this, but they're not. But the kids who are serious and the parents who are serious, this is your opportunity to maybe end up with hundreds of thousands of dollars scholarship money, you know, and you know, when it's all said and done.
And that is a great point. When we talk about testing, the test requirement in general regarding admissions is 1 point, and then scholarship money is a second. So, you know, with the new changes, there are a lot of students that may be relieved. Maybe they're relieved because they are afraid to take the test. They're not good test takers, like you mentioned. They're prepping the wrong way. The logic component just doesn't make any sense, and they're frustrated. So when they hear this whole test optional or no test required, My question to you, Jean, is should that student just say, okay, good, I'm not going to test, if in fact our colleges and universities will still rely on test scores for scholarship money? So I'm trying, I've got parents that are unsure, so based on your experience and based on the money, obviously, that you just talked about, which is very, very important. And I know you mentioned when you and I chatted, 1 or 2 points on an ACT or 100 or 150 points on an SAT can really mean a big difference in terms of the money. So if you could help our junior parents right now that are kind of toyed, figuring out what to do.
So very good point. So 2 things I'm thinking here. 85% of colleges admit and give money on test scores alone. So that shows you how important the testing is. Now, obviously, we're in a strange time right now. So, but the reason why colleges offer so much money is because all colleges are ranked. They get their national rankings based on test scores. So if you were to go to U.S. News and World Report and you looked at the rankings of colleges, and we'd have Princeton, and we have Harvard, and it goes down from there, that's how they get their rankings. So that means if a student goes to a college that has a high score, let's say their average SAT score is 1100, but your student has a 1300. What that does is that brings their rankings up, which makes the school look better. They get more money, and you get lots of money because it's a game they play. So that is one of the reasons why test scores, even though there are schools right now that are test optional or test flexible, if you have the opportunity, by all means, you want to get a score in, because that can set you apart of the kids who aren't doing it. I think one of the things that we have to realize and needs to be in our vocabulary is that optional is not optional. And I think if you go that second mile, that's, it could be the difference between, if they're torn between 2 applicants, the one who's done the test score and the one who doesn't, then obviously they're going to go with the one who has, because it ultimately, makes a difference in their rankings. And so if you have a senior though right now that missed out on the March, obviously the May and the June coming up, one of the things I want to tell you about is the CLT. That is the Classic Learning Test. It's been around about 4.5 years, and many, if not all, colleges right now are accepting it in lieu of the SAT and ACT cancellations. So you'll still be able to get a test in. Now, it's remotely proctored already. It's already on the computer. It's already online. CLTexam.com is their website. But what I would recommend is go online, and the kids will love it because it's only 2 hours long versus 3 hours on the SAT and the ACT. And so they're doing it on their own laptop or their own tablet. But again, these colleges are saying, hey, we're going to accept this because we can't do an SAT or ACT. So I would check into that for sure. Now, I have a code to give you. If you do use it, it's CPG18. That would cut your registration in half. So
we'll add that information in the comment section. Thank you very much. The link and the code. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I also have a link on my website that you can go read more about it.
Okay, good.
Again, we'll put that in there too. So check into that. Now, that's for a senior who says, I've got to get some kind of score in now. And by the way, I don't know if people know this or not, but most colleges will accept a test even up until the day before you start school. Right. So that means there's still some opportunities. The CLT is offering another test on June 20th. They may be, again, they're already remotely proctoring it, so they didn't have to do anything different. And like the SAT and ACT, who we're not prepared for that. So I would definitely, take as many as you can between now and then if you're a senior. Now, if you're a junior, again, we don't know what's going to happen in 5 months, in 6 months. Nobody does. We can only kind of speculate a little bit. We can only kind of assume. But again, even if the colleges in the fall say, we're still going to let kids not have to turn a test in, okay, they may do that. But if your kid has a test to turn in, it will make them stand out. Again, they're looking for those scores. They're looking for those high scores. That's not only going to get them into college, but get that big money. And we don't want anybody strapped with 20 years of college debt. That's the average cost years it takes to pay off loans or mortgage your house or get into your retirement or your savings. And we don't want that. So what you want to do is stack the cards in your favor and say, look, I've got some extra time right now. I have, yeah, I'm still doing school and I'm finishing up my schoolwork, whether it's via the teacher or via the parent or however. But then, summer doesn't necessarily look like it's going to have a lot of things opened up, maybe a few little things, but we're all going to be very cautious. What an opportunity. You could take and treat test prep like a part-time job and say, you know what, if I put so much time in over X amount of time, and I yield $100, $150, $200,000 scholarship, that is way more than you would have ever made at any part-time job, that you would apply for.
No, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And I did have a couple parents that reached out, and they did say that there is extra time, that the kids have extra time at home. But I also had those students that are still not responding to remote learning. They're having a lot of challenges. So one thing I just want to mention right now is I completely agree. I love that analogy. It's like a part-time job. It's your contribution to your education. And because everything's been on hold, and we're not looking until July or August for testing, use it as your vehicle to add to the contribution of your tuition. And I mean, we're talking maybe an hour a day. We're not looking at, a boot camp where it's like 8 hours a day. I mean, those are great when it works for a schedule, but right now it's just making it the new normal, because I mean, the academic landscape has changed and we need to be resilient and we need to utilize that extra time. But for students that are watching or parents that are watching, one thing is we don't want to add any more fear. We don't want to add another layer of another item to do. So if your student is still adapting, is still adjusting, and is working very hard to just be successful this semester, do that. Because this is not a one size fits all. Jean and I had a chat the other day, and it was so good. And we both agree it's not, one program will not work for one person, but when you put it in your schedule as the new normal, and you just drip the information and drip the prepping, it just makes it a little bit more easier to retain versus just 8 hours. And also, if you're struggling in the classroom, adding another layer of academics or prepping. So that is such a great point. And I agree, the test optional I had mentioned is not test blind. So you have a test score, and if that school is test optional and you send it, again, you've just separated yourself from the other applicants, because now you're providing them more data. And I love the fact that you mentioned how the schools are ranked. They need to use something. They obviously need to use scores and GPA so that they have bragging rights. And you know what? Rightfully so. I mean, there's some, very, very incredibly bright students. And when they do go to these schools, it just ups the school ranking. That's fantastic. Now, a question would be for our current juniors, and let's say our current sophomores, as we look to the future, the ACT and the SAT both are looking at remote testing in the fall. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to add more test dates. They know that the dates that were canceled, they're trying to replace them. We know that the SAT has added a September test. This was last week. We have the dates for the SAT. We're still on schedule for August 29th. And then they added a September test date. Don't know the actual day yet. That's to be determined. October 3rd, November 7th, and December 5th. So that's what we have right now. But then starting in the fall, I'm assuming that maybe the September or the October, it's the remote testing available at home. Tell me, what do you think that's going to be like based on all your experience, and also to get the students' heads wrapped around that, being taken at home?
Well, I can comment on the fact that I know about the CLT, which is remotely proctored, and how they do it. They actually, believe it or not, they have cameras on the students. They also, the students have to also show them their blank pages. So you can't have any like pre-written information or formulas in front of you or anything like that. And it also measures your keystrokes. So they know what you're doing and how much time you're spending, or if you're over trying to do something else. And so that's, I think, if the SAT and ACT take a page out of the book of the CLT, they're probably going to do something similar. For me, it's been, having taught test prep for 15 years, I teach the kids that these are beatable tests. Every question can be answered in 30 seconds or less. The problem is most kids are going to run out of time and spend 2 or 3 minutes per question because they're looking at it, trying to work it out the long way, trying to burn the clock up. But once you understand the logic behind the questions, you can discern the fast ways to answer them. So for me, the difficult thing has been I teach the kids to use their pencil to circle certain words and underline certain things and bracket certain things and draw arrows and all that. So what we've had to adapt with the CLT is, and this is on that link that I gave you, or we'll put it there, about how to use your blank pages to find the answer, because you're not actually able to work on the screen. You have to do it on your paper. So I've done an example on that on my website. So that'll be the difference. It'll be a difference of, having to figure out what they're asking. How do I find the key word or the pattern here? And that comes with practice. But now here's the good news. A standardized test has standardized questions and standardized answers. So the more you practice using actual test questions, the faster you become. Accuracy before speed. And you'll get faster and faster as so you start seeing the pattern. So whatever pattern they use on one test, they have to use it on the next one, the next one, the next one. So that's why familiarity is so important. Repetition is so important. It's not like, hey, it's not a one-shot deal. You don't put all your eggs into one basket. And so the more that you practice the correct way, then when you're taking the actual test, and obviously it'll be second nature to you at that point. So kids are going to have to transition over. Are paper and pencil going away? I don't know. And I don't think anytime soon. I think that they're probably not equipped to do it, to transfer everything over, and they have to deal with cheating. And there's a lot of other things that go into an online class or an online test. So I think that paper and pencil will probably still be around for a while, if not forever. I don't know.
Right.
So we teach the techniques on that, on how to use your pencil to find the correct answer and to find it quickly.
Okay. And you keep mentioning the logic component, which I want to go back to. There have been times, so as a high school counselor for 28 years and having a caseload of students and helping them and mentoring them through high school and then the college prep component, there were students that were just bright kids. They just, they did exactly what they were supposed to. They took the time and they invested in their academics. And then there were a handful of them that would just come short. They would come up short when it came up, with the SAT and the ACT and the frustration. And they had invested in, some sort of test prep. Maybe they did it on their own, a tutor, whatever. I don't remember, but I knew that they took it seriously. So, and I know there may be viewers out there that if they have a sophomore student and it's like, it's not the GPA. It's not your GPA that you're seeing on a report card or a transcript that's going to translate to an SAT or ACT. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that logic component, because that is huge, and it can be admissions and it can be money.
Absolutely. I probably hear this hundreds of times a week. A parent says something to the effect of, my child has a 4.8. They're in all honors classes, they're in AP classes, but yet they keep bombing the SAT or ACT. I don't get it. And the kids feel helpless and they don't understand it, because these are good students, smart students. And here's why. First of all, the reason why a college will use a test like an SAT or ACT as opposed to the GPA, not that you should have a bad GPA, I don't mean that, but a 4.0 at one high school is not the same 4.0 at another. Every school calculates their scores differently. So the only fair way a college can compare, let's say, a public school kid in California versus a homeschool kid in Texas versus a private school in Florida. There's only one way to compare everybody, and that is through a standardized test, because it levels the playing field. It makes it equal for everybody, because your kids there in California might take hard classes, very rigorous courses and hard teachers, and they have a certain GPA. Guy down the street goes to an easy school, has an easy teacher, and has the same GPA as your child. So on paper, they look the same. So the colleges cannot compare the two. So the only fair way is to use something that we all have in common. That is our critical thinking skills. And so the way that they write the test, they write them to where the questions are purposely misleading and the wrong answers can be very appealing. And so students will look at that and they very often will fall for the trick answers because it's designed for them to do that unless they can logically and critically and carefully look at the question and say, okay, what's the question really asking me? Not what I think it's asking, but what's it asking? And so I usually give a few examples in my classroom and stump the kids every time because they thought I asked one thing and I didn't. I said something completely different. But that's where you can become a trained test taker by just learning the recurring patterns and practicing the correct way. There's no magic secret. And to address your point about students who've taken very expensive prep courses, the problem is many courses, even the name brand ones, teach the wrong stuff. They'll teach your students more math concepts, thousands of vocabulary words,
Right.
more and more content. And this is a logic test, not a content-based test. You cannot study for the test. You have to study the test itself and how they write the questions and how they write the answers. So this is why students are going in there and they're treating it like a normal test, and they're reading all the passages. They're reading all the questions, all the answers, or they're working out the math the long way and showing all their work. And you don't have time because you get about a minute per question. And in some cases, you get 36 seconds on the ACT and 47 seconds on the ACT in certain sections. So if you don't know the fast ways, you will not do well because you will just simply, all of a sudden you're halfway through and the timer goes off. That's the biggest problem that I hear, the biggest complaint that I hear. And these are smart students. And let me tell you the two things that I have discovered, and I think I sent you the article. If I didn't, I will.
Okay.
We wrote an article called Good Test Taker versus Bad Test Taker.
Yes, did.
And so you'll have these students who are they're called good test takers. And what they are logically minded already. They see patterns naturally. It's kind of intuitive to them. So in math, they will see a pattern. Now, the reading section, not so much. Okay? And again, for those students, learning a few more little things can put them over the top. Then you have your other students, which are called the rule followers. And those are the ones who are going to read the whole passage, and they're going to try to analyze it, and they're going to try to interpret it, and they're going to stress over it, and they're going to read every bit of the questions and answers. And for them, they may not be naturally logically minded, but logic is not a personality trait. Logic is a skill. And anybody can train their brain to think more logically. So the rule followers, who may be just as smart as the logically minded students, can ultimately do just as well, just training their brain. And this is why I'm such a big believer in starting early, because you cannot get time back. And as our kids get older, as they get into high school, they get busier, more school, more homework, part-time jobs, sports, friends, clubs, church. So that's why, we even have 6th and 7th graders who do our program. And because they can spend so much more time on one area because they've got time on their side. Timing can be the killer of opportunities. And so that's why I'm such a big believer saying, look, start early. It's kind of my battle cry.
And I agree. Though you brought something up in terms of starting early, but also content. So I will have parents that will ask me, when is the best time? And a lot of times, high school students, they'll get frustrated if they take a practice test too soon. Maybe they haven't had enough math. They haven't been exposed to some of the content. So they're waiting until they've completed the Algebra 1 and the geometry and the Algebra 2 trigonometry. If their grades are solid, so they've got a foundation to build from, because I do know the strategies and the logic techniques and tips that you share and test prep companies share, that's huge. But you're not going to go back and teach algebra, geometry, and Algebra 2 trig. I mean, that's done. That's on the onus of the student. That's the classroom situation and the relationship with the teacher to make sure that that's solid. And then from there, we're going to build. Now we're going to start, going from there. So when you say start early, what would be the earliest, realistically, when this pandemic lifts and kids go back to being busy? Because it seems like 10 years ago, students that were busy, it's much different than today. They are I don't even know I don't know when they sleep. how they get to school on time and do well in class because they are so involved. And it isn't necessarily something that's pushed at them. They're just interested. They want to be involved in multiple things. So when do you think is the best time to prep? So it gives families and students the time to really get the most out of the program.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a really good question. So I actually have a good amount of sixth graders who do my program. I have seventh graders who score higher than seniors on their SATs, and they haven't even had high school math yet. Because I think, again, I'm not saying don't get math, okay, but what I'm saying is once you understand that it's a test of patterns, and you can learn to logically look at the test, you can do very well. Now, that's not to say don't get your math, but another thing too, now, is every sixth grader ready? Absolutely not. Not every seventh grader is ready. I do have a lot of seventh graders and a ton of eighth graders and above, because they haven't quite got into the intense AP classes or more classes that they're going to get into high school. But the reason why I say start early is because let's use the math component, for example. Let's suppose you haven't got all your math in, which most sixth and seventh, eighth graders haven't.
Right.
You could be working on the reading and the writing and perfecting it.
Okay.
Because I had first time I ever taught in Orlando, there was a young girl who came to my class. She was sixth grade at the time. This is back when the SAT was 3 sections: math, reading, and writing.
Right.
So it was 800, 800, 800. Okay, so I taught in Orlando. She was sixth grade. She had my videos. She had practice questions. She had all that. The next time I came back to Orlando, she was seventh grade. She took my class again, even though she's still doing stuff at home. I didn't come back to Orlando until she was in ninth grade. She was already scoring perfect in 2 out of 3 sections.
Wow.
So if you look at it like that, reading and writing are something that you don't need more skills on. You already know all the grammar you need to know. You already know how to read. So if the younger students would think, okay, maybe math is something I want to kind of put on hold and maybe look at it, I could get reading and writing down. And then as I'm working on my math, and by the time that I get into ninth grade and 10th grade, I don't need to learn that much more, but you've already got the other 2 down. So
Got it.
A lot less time just on that one section.
That makes sense. That makes sense because you're reading and, now vocabulary, those are the things that, you'll just be working on it because it isn't a sprint. This isn't something that you register or sign up and expect to get, this, improved score overnight. It's like anything. It's like playing a sport, playing an instrument. We talked about that the other day. It's like when you get out on the football field or hockey or tennis and you're new to that, you're new to that sport, you're going to be learning different things and you're going to practice and you're going to learn and you're going to practice. And over time, you're going to keep improving. And you're going to have your coach tweaking things and adjusting and suggesting. Right. And it's all the same. It all kind of is the same type of learning. And that's what I hope parents and students out there, don't expect overnight results. And there has to be some time invested. Don't just pay for a test prep company or, an online class or a book and expect it just to happen overnight and just put the book on top of your head and osmosis will happen. And then you do really well. There has to be, that time invested for sure, because I've seen that and I've seen the results and it really is a great thing. And I always say, looking at it for the financial component, that piece. Yeah.
There is no instant success, as you said. You cannot shortcut the shortcut. And
right.
So these students, it's like everything else, what you put into it, your time and your effort. And I think that for our kids, it can make the difference between, your decision should be the institution and not the finances. Your child should be able to, go to that school, be able to put the time in on their studies and not have to work at a part-time job or worry about having all this debt, and then graduate debt-free. And I think that's worth it, but it is not instant. And to your point about the vocabulary, one of the things that the beauty of these tests being logic based, is that you don't have to know vocabulary. You can answer a question without ever knowing what the word means. There's over 171,000 words in the dictionary, and there's no way we're going to ever know what what those words are or their meaning.
True.
So the way the test questions are written, they're written in a way that even if you don't know what the word means, it doesn't matter. You can still logically figure out the answer. Sometimes it's just by process of elimination. If I know it's not A, B, or C, even if I don't know what D means, it's the only one left. And I can confidently mark that answer because I've already eliminated the other three.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in closing, a couple things I'd just like to mention and just kind of restate what you said is, test optional and testing that will not be required next year. Parents, just be careful, be cautious. In terms of if your student has an academic plan, and again, working in a high school for 28 years and as an independent counselor, my number one mission when I work with students is have a plan. We all have to have a plan. Have an academic plan. It's written in pencil. There'll be some adjustments like what we're dealing with right now. We're going to have to make some changes. We have to be resilient. Testing isn't going to be happening, so we'll postpone that for a couple more months, but we need an academic plan. If your academic plan has on there SAT, ACT prep, and that you're planning on taking the test, stay the course. Stay the course, and just know that you are providing additional information to a college for admissions, even if it's not required or it's optional. Because again, a test optional is not test blind. They will look at that information, that data, and weigh it into their decision. But also the bigger picture is scholarship money or any type of merit money that will come into play. So again, this is not a one size fits all. If your student has never tested well and you've been panicking as a parent going, oh my gosh, how is my son or daughter going to get a decent score? There have been test optional schools for years. Not this COVID pandemic has not created test optional. So if you go to fairtest.org, again, that will be added into the comments. I brought this up last week. Fair Test is a list of four-year colleges and universities that have a test optional requirement. So you do not need to take the test. If in fact you are that would just really crush your student, and your students just has that, test anxiety, because let's just, everyone is different. Everyone's going to approach it differently. So that is available. And then also take it slowly, start early and drip this information. So it starts to become the new normal. It's natural. And now that our students are at home and they're working remotely and they have some downtime because of extracurricular, it is a perfect opportunity to just add that to the routine. And Jean, what would you recommend in terms of how many days a week and how long per day for prepping?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I can speak for my program, how we designed it. We designed it to where you can spend about an hour a day, 5 days a week for 12 weeks. So that makes a semester, so you can use it as elective on your transcript. And so that hour includes going over the shortcuts and strategies for that section, and then working actual problems. And then what we do is we go back over every question and every answer. We show you why the right one's right, but why the wrong ones are wrong. That way you can correct your mistakes. And then through the rest of the week, we have homework that reinforces. It's very kinesthetic. So we have watching, we have you hearing, we have you reading, we have you writing. We try to cover everything. And then of course we have a baseline score in the beginning so that you know your starting point, so that, when you get to the end, you retake the same test again from the College Board to see how much you've improved. Probably my average student goes up. We have a lot of schools that use our program, and they give the kids the baseline. And then in the end, they give them the same exact test from the College Board. And they probably go up about 250 on an average. Now that's the first time through.
Okay.
Some have gone up 400, 500, 600 more first time through. But you've only, you only retain a small percentage of what you heard the first time. So the next time you go through it, you're going to pick up something you missed the first time. Plus we have reinforcing quizzes as well. So we have an online e-course that does that. We've been doing this for 15 years. We've won a lot of awards, and we've got, you know, tons of video testimonies on my website that you can go watch parents and students of, you know, how their life was changed by getting that high score. The other thing too is, we had, up until just obviously recently, we have taught live boot camps all across America as well as other countries. That's obviously on hold. So we are going to be doing some virtual boot camps. It'll be over several days, where the kids will get to sit in front of a live teacher online. They can ask questions. It's interactive. They can put their score. Like if we say, "What did you get for this question?" They can put in A, B, C, or D, and then we'll know how many kids picked this answer or that answer. So that'll be coming out next month. Some kids need accountability. We're going to be doing an 8-week class where you have to turn your homework in and all that. But you know, the e-course, you can get started right away. I mean, you can start right now, do it at your own time and your own pace. The virtual boot camps will be held at certain times, so the kids can log on and do that. So yeah, it's not instant, but you know what? You can't get upset for the results you don't get for the work you don't do.
Right.
You know, you got to do the work. You've got to do the work. I don't know how many times I have to tell people and say, "Well, I didn't raise my score." And I'm like, "Well, did you do this, this, and this?" And they're like, "No, no, no, no." I'm like, "Why are you calling me?"
Right.
I mean, honestly, go to your coach and tell him, "Well, I didn't do any of my sprints or my push-ups or my sit-ups all week long." What's he going to do? Oh, okay. Oh, no, you're going to go on the bench because you didn't do anything. You didn't do what you're supposed to do. So, yeah, it's work, but it can be definitely worth it.
Absolutely. And you brought something up that I'm going to go back to that. So if a student has not tested, let's say freshman, sophomore student, they have not had an official test. They may have had a couple, 1 or 2 practice tests at their high school. Do you recommend that they sign up to take an official test through College Board or ACT, or take a free full test before prepping so that they have a baseline to provide a test prep company or a tutor so they know where to start and what areas that they need to work on? What's your take on that?
Oh, absolutely. Whether you do it on an actual test where you pay and go to it, which you can't do right now anyways, or whether you do the practice one, because the College Board has 8 practice tests online for free. That it's
Right.
the same type of test, so you're going to have the same difficulty level of all the questions. So it's the results are going to be about the same no matter which one you take. So my take is, I know we have all the kids in my program do the baseline. It's an actual College Board test, free online. Test number 1, then go through the program, do the quizzes, do the homework, and then take the same test again. That's how we know how much they've improved. It shows
Okay.
it shows my parents that it works. It shows and it gives those kids that confidence and motivation to go back
Yes.
again. So whether you do the practice one or you do an actual one, you do need a baseline. I will tell you though, if you do go in to take a baseline score, an actual official test, you know, based on score choice, you don't have to send the scores in. So there's really no pressure to go in there and say, "You know what, I'm going to take it. Nobody's ever going to see my scores. It doesn't matter." Every time you take an actual test, you gain that test maturity and you lessen that anxiety. So there's nothing wrong with going into one and taking one. But for now, everybody can do the free ones online.
Okay, fantastic. And that is a great point for parents and students. If you're not aware of this, when you take an SAT or an ACT, your score is yours. It is in your portal and no one sees it. So, and I have to remind my students that I work with privately is don't worry. You know, they may get frustrated. They may be upset. The score wasn't where they wanted it to be, but no one sees it. As a student, you are the one that goes into your College Board account or your ACT account, and you will send them or that score or scores to the college or colleges of your choice. So that's very, very important. Now, one thing about the SAT and the ACT is if you're certain that you want to send that test score before you actually take it to a college, you get free options. So you have 4 free schools that you can send your test score to, but you don't know your test, you don't know your score at that time. But in terms of dollar amount, we're trying to cut costs. We don't want to keep taking all these tests. They're expensive. And the cost to send them to the schools, that costs money as well. So we want to be careful of that. So in terms of this whole changing of the academic landscape, parents and students don't feel that you're alone in this crazy world of college prep and the application process and the testing process. This is something where, many families face this every year, but you do need to know that there is support around you. There is support. College prep roadmap is designed to support parents and their families, parents and the parents, to help them be the best student and help parents support their student, providing you the resource and making this manageable. There's no reason to add an extra layer of stress and anxiety. We do not need that. But I do have to say, let's be honest, when you talk about college, I don't care what level, what grade your student is in, parents will be like, oh gosh, the college process. It naturally creates a little bit of anxiety because you're unfamiliar and you don't know what the future holds. Starting early, using your resources, working with people that understand students. So Jean, what you said at the beginning is you love to help. I've loved that. I've done this my entire adult life, is supporting students, giving them the confidence that they need to move forward so they feel like they own this process. It's not the parents running the show. Parents can support. We need our parents to support, but it's the student having that inner strength and that independence and really owning it. I think that is an important message, especially right now. Even that confident student may be second guessing themselves. So in closing, Jean, any last comments about the testing world? I think I've asked you the questions that I've wanted to. Anything else?
Well, one thing I think people need to know is when it comes to standardized testing, it's not just for getting into college and getting scholarship money, which is obviously crucial. But once you understand that most standardized tests are very similar, they have one objective, indisputable answer and several distractors. And so one of the things that I want to encourage you is that you're not even wasting your time when you do test prep for your kids, because obviously college and scholarship money is important, but the strategies that they learn can be used on so many other tests. Over the years, we've had people come to us and say, I use your program not just on the SAT and ACT to get into college and get money. I use it on the LSAT, got a free ride, got a free law school. I use it on the PSAT. I use it on AP tests, the FBI, the ASFAB, the CPA test, the real estate test. And my company we have nothing to do with those things. But what happened was the kids learned how to discern a logical question and find the answer, even though my program has nothing to do with, the CPA test or the Accuplacer is also made by the College Board too. Civil service test. I mean, these are things.
Right.
I had a girl, and this is her video testimonials on my website. So do go to the testimonial part of my website at collegeprepgenius.com. But there was a young girl who came up to my booth last year when I was speaking in Dallas. And she said, I did your program. I did well in the SAT and all that, did great. She goes, but I got to tell you this. I said, okay. She said, I had finished up Mandarin 1 and I wanted to test into Mandarin 2. She said, when I took the test, I did not know the majority of the words, but I just used the College Prep Genius strategies and I tested as a native Mandarin speaker.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, oh my gosh. Well, of course she went and just took Mandarin 2. She knew that she didn't know that. But having said that, I don't know anything about Mandarin, but the strategies and the patterns that we teach are found on pretty much all standardized tests because they kind of all do the same thing when they write a test. So, we have the e-course online that you can do at your own time. We have virtual boot camps coming up. Maybe we'll ultimately go back to doing live boot camps in schools and in homes and stuff that we've been doing for years. But these are beatable tests. Your kids can ace this test because it's not about IQ, not that they're not smart, but it's about learning the logical patterns and then practicing the correct way.
Exactly. Fantastic. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Such good information. It's helpful for our parents and our students right now. This is a big, like I mentioned at the beginning, it's a hot topic and parents need guidance and support. So the information we shared today, this is a live recording, but it will be posted on College Prep Roadmap as well as my personal page. And any resources that we talked about will be in the comment section. And if you have any questions, you can actually post it in the comment section and either Jean or myself will answer them. Share this with family, share this with friends. It's all about getting information, accurate information, and supporting our students. They do not need to be detouring at this moment. This is a time where they just need to stay steady, finish strong, and all that good stuff. Just a couple last minute reminders in general, aside from testing, is May 1st is coming up. So seniors, those that are committing to a college on May 1, good luck. We talked about this last week, but just I wish you well. You know, just take the time right now if you haven't made that decision, and you know, and figure out what will be that fit. Contacting the university, reaching out to admissions if you have any last minute questions, taking a virtual tour, whatever it takes, and then commit by May 1. And then AP exams are still scheduled for May. Keep up with the support that the AP College Board is providing, as well as your fabulous AP instructors. And last week I did post the AP webinar information that the College Board put on. So basically it's the 45-minute test, and they're focusing on getting that test completed, even though it's open notes and open book. Don't rely on that. Make sure you know the information, because you'll be spending more time looking at notes in the book, and you're going to run out of time. So do the best you can. And all of the colleges and universities understand this AP online, and they will accept the scores as if it was taken regularly, a traditional way. We have a guest next week, next Wednesday, and this is where I'm going to wrap up. Really excited to have Emily. Hold on, I've got this information here. Emily Baker from the University of Redlands. She works in the financial aid office. She will be our guest next Wednesday. That is the 29th at 10:30 a.m. to answer questions about the FAFSA, appealing and asking for more money, and understanding the financial aid, the merit, and the scholarship world. So on that note, Jean, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your insight. You are an authority when it comes to testing, and I appreciate it. And I also appreciate how your prices are affordable and they're value packed, because that's what it's all about right now. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week. Have a fabulous weekend. Bye, Jean.